if you're not focused, if you're not 200% every day showing up, doing the same work all over again, for me, that's not a bankable founder, especially not with such a risk-free capital as we provide, right? So
Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome back for another expert series with Vitals. I'm here with a friend of mine and someone that has been in Bangkok for quite a while. His name is Ankit. He's the founder and general partner at A2D Ventures. Ankit, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of where you started out and how you ended up here in Bangkok?
Sure, happy to. So my journey has been across mainly 3 countries. I grew up in India. Right after high school, I ended up in the US. And funny enough, I didn't even know where to go. I didn't know it was going to be Ohio or Chicago or New York. And a neighbor of mine said, well, I live in the Bay Area, so why don't you come there? I'll just help you out. So that's how I ended up in the Valley, in the Bay Area. And undergrad, grad school, most of my early working life was always in the Bay Area. Always been in tech, but more on the hardware side of tech. So rightfully so, as the Silicon Valley goes for semiconductors, that's where I spent most of my early days, starting with a company that innovated and even scaled what today is memory card or NAND flash.
Okay.
A company called SanDisk. So spent a few years there. And I did a lot of lateral moves between the industry and consulting, but always stayed within the semiconductor space. That's what got me to Asia now almost 10 years ago. This was a time when a bunch of the high-cost countries were moving to low-cost countries like Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam.
So you moved to Thailand 10 years ago?
I moved to Thailand 9 years ago. Well, I started living here.
Yeah.
But I've been coming to Thailand for about 13 years now.
Okay.
It was mainly to set up factories or scale factories or bring operational excellence to these factories. And then I spent a lot of time in Asia, right? So Japan, China, Malaysia, Philippines.
And those were customers in those countries or clients?
Correct. So largely I was working for a boutique consulting firm out in New York. Ideally, what we wanted to do is scale the right operational excellence or quality metrics for manufacturing here. I mean, China was already ahead.
Yeah.
And Southeast Asia was just catching up. So that was what I was doing a lot of advisory and consulting work on. And I had clients all over Southeast Asia.
Oh, nice. And then, so what made you set your sights on basing yourself in Thailand specifically?
So one of the clients asked me to be in Thailand for a year. It was a transformation project. We were turning around their operations. And a lot of people don't know this, but I would say a bunch of the camera lenses that go into the iPhones are produced here in Thailand.
Oh, I don't know that.
But yeah, a lot of people don't know this. So there's this mega factory in Bang Na. They have 3 other factories in Thailand. And they're one of the leading chip assembly and test houses in the world.
Okay. Because usually I thought Taiwan was one of the largest for iPhone parts and also for chips.
Correct. So, I mean, if you look across the value chain of semiconductors, right, it starts at the wafer, which Taiwan and sort of leads that pack, right? But when it comes to packaging, which is assembly and test, is generally high labor and low value add.
Yeah.
And that's a bunch of the work that's been happening in Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, right?
Is it less skilled required for like the...
Less automation, less skill, mass volume, so it's very high scale, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And one of the foundational factories in Thailand was National Semiconductors out of US.
Yeah.
Which eventually switched hands in terms of owners. And that was one of the factories that I was attached to advising for a year. And at the end of the tenure, the CEO and me were having this conversation in Singapore, and he said, well, I'm looking at scaling Thailand. I wish I had a guy like you. And jokingly, I mean, this is when I was 27. I said, for the right price, John, you could afford anyone you want. And next thing I know, I get a call from the head of HR. And they're like, well, John thinks we want to bring you into Thailand, and this is your expatriate contract. I didn't even know what the word expatriate meant.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up in Thailand. And at that time, my wife was 7 months pregnant. But we made the decision. A lot of people called us foolish, but we've been here, and I've done a lot of changes here. I've been here for 10 years, but now this is home.
No, I feel, so I've been in Thailand now 7 years, and I feel like it's a great place to, a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity. Yep. And also it's really in the heart of Southeast Asia, which I think is, if anything, it's a bubble that's ready to kind of go off at any time. And then, so now you're currently with, your main role is with A2D Ventures, and I know you have a few other arms, but let's start with A2D. How did A2D come about, and
Sure.
Yes, maybe you could explain a little bit more about what you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, before I jump into how A2D came about, I think my Southeast Asia journey over the 10 years has been very unique. So from working for a factory, I went into management consulting with McKinsey here in the Bangkok office, and I was serving a bunch of clients regionally. So that gave me exposure to what's top of mind for all the businesses, corporates across the region, right? And from there, I did a very deliberate career pivot. I've been in tech, but I wanted to be in consumer tech. So I was like, what are my choices? Yeah, should I go work for Grab? Should I go work for Lazada? Should I go work for C Group, which is a parent company for Shopee? And that's where I ended up being. So I spent about 4 years with Shopee, multiple hats. I was head of supply chain. I entered pre-COVID and COVID hit, and the first thing that blew up was supply chain, and I managed that sort of crisis during COVID times. Then the business decided to launch India, where I was the country manager and head of operations for Shopee India, which was a whole different journey. Big market, a lot of unknowns, but you get in, how you build a business, scale it, and then eventually we had to shut it down because of the macro headwinds, right? And during that time, I think 4 years gave me a lot of exposure to what are the consumers looking for, what are they willing to spend money on and not. And when you look at a business as big as Shopee, which is an e-commerce, there's a lot of businesses around it. There's a big fintech side with payments, with wallets, with payment gateways, lending. Then there's a big arm on the supply chain side, which is logistics, warehousing, fulfillment.
Yeah, last mile delivery.
Last mile delivery, right? Cross-border. I mean, most of these platforms are known for enabling 5 days cross-border, which was unheard of.
Because even now, if you order off Lazada or Shopee, it could come, it doesn't necessarily have to come from Thailand. It could come from China or come from
Indonesia or Japan or Korea. And it's being done within days, right? It's being done in 4 to 5 days.
Yeah.
So solving those kind of problems as you scale e-commerce gave me a lot of exposure to different kinds of consumer tech that was being built across the region, right?
Yeah, and I guess with these types of, with the sort of Shopee and Lazada, people want, it's like how they compete with each other. Everyone wants everything faster, right? Or more accessibility. So you really have to kind of stay on top of the customer to like, what do they want? How can we give them more value so they're buying from, so for some reason, I don't know why, but I use Lazada more. Maybe that's because I feel there's so they maybe hit my customer needs, but at least at one point of time, and then being able to deliver consistency over a point of time. But like, I still find it hard to, for some reason, I don't buy on TikTok, or I still find it difficult to buy on TikTok. So like probably this newer, so they're probably still trying to figure out the customer behavior and what people want and how people are shopping.
Yeah. I mean, demographics play a very important role. Your spending habits, how old you are and where you are. There's a very distinctive consumer base for TikTok, which is a lot more younger, impulsive purchases driven, usually low basket size.
Yeah, cheaper, yeah.
Low basket size, right? Then you've got the mass market Shopees of the world that has a broad range. I mean, you could buy stuff for 9 baht, you could go all the way to 9,000 baht, you can buy an iPhone, whatever you want, right? But largely the businesses within e-commerce were, am I focusing myself on the metropole, like Bangkok, Greater Bangkok, or am I going to focus on outside Bangkok? And hence your strategies, whether it was discounts, coupons, performance marketing, was all varied by that demographic.
Because the basket size would drop significantly once you go out of Bangkok, right?
Correct.
And even probably the types of products people are interested in.
Types of products, and the entire C2C space, right? I mean, so if you look at e-commerce, it's largely either 1P or one party led, which is the Amazon model. I procure everything, I keep it in my warehouse, I fulfill it for you, and I control the entire customer experience. Yeah. In Shopee world, it's largely dependent on a marketplace model or C2C, where the seller is the one who's creating the customer experience from packaging to design of the box, how fast do I ship and not ship, et cetera. And then the customer does have the optionality to chat with the seller and then say, look, what is this product about? Can I return it, et cetera, right? So the two different models, but I think one is Alibaba-led, which is a more marketplace dynamic. Also marketplace economics eventually, right? I mean, sometimes you go to these platforms and you see same product from 50 sellers with 2 baht apart.
Yeah. And you'll notice the algorithms really targeting you, and then you kind of start seeing the same products over and over again until you buy it. And then after you buy it, you're still getting targeted by it.
Yep.
Or similar products that I'm sure people that have bought that product are then buying secondary, right?
Yep.
So, obviously the way people shop, just this is just a side note, how before Shopee and Lazada, it's more kind of customer driven, like how that I'm searching for products. Where now, with TikTok and the younger generation, it's all kind of scrolling. Oh, I see this, I want to buy it. So there's not a lot of thought going into what they're buying. It's more just in front of them. Where do you see, or have you even thought about where do you see it going next?
Yeah, I mean, we think about it all the time from an investor perspective, right? I mean, I think the way I categorize this is what is conscious buying versus not so conscious buying. In the conscious buying realm, I think that's where higher basket sizes live. And that's where
people have this thought behind it, and maybe I need a new pair of shoes.
Correct.
So
Some research.
There's logic behind it.
Correct. And then within the conscious segment, I think e-commerce continues to solve for a few things. One is better pricing, because you're, again, competing with a bunch of sellers. You're also competing on convenience. Can I ship you today, tomorrow? Can I ship it at your doorstep for the same price where I got to pick up a car and go to a mall and et cetera, all right? And the third one is your post-sales experience. I mean, how the customer behaves when they have a problem with the product. And
returns, like changing the size.
Defects, changing sizes. Can I get my money back or not? I think the fundamentals of conscious buyers is still very much, am I getting the right price at the right convenience? And my post-purchase experience, is it positive or not?
Yeah.
And I think it's largely solved for today.
And do you think, look, I do hear like price is what people are always, competing on, right? Do you think that it gets to a point though where you keep cutting the price, then where's the money to be made? So do you get to a point where eventually like these businesses, they can't keep losing money forever, right?
Yep.
So they need to meet, do you think that's kind of detrimental to these businesses if they keep focusing on cutting prices to kind of beat out the competition, or what's your kind of view on that?
I think my answer to that question is, if you look at not just in Thailand, globally, most of the platform businesses are now either profitable or soon to be profitable. The fundamentals of doing anything online or digitally was you get the economies of scale and it's going to be cheaper to do it, right? Compared to doing it at a mall, for instance, right?
Yeah, because you have the rent, the staff.
Correct. So the overheads should be normalized over millions of orders versus hundreds, thousands of orders, right? So I think now over the last 2 years, we're seeing finally e-commerce hit that minimum viable threshold where the economies do make sense. Now, do I incentivize the buyer to keep coming back or not? That's up to me as a platform.
Yeah.
And I think what's driving the market in general is how fast do you want to get the market? Is it TikTok versus Lazada versus Shopee or Grab? And how much am I willing to burn to pull that customer in? And then B, more importantly today, is to retain them.
And then I guess, do you think that these third-party platforms, they worry about, like the brands, for example? So I know that, and I've had this problem before myself, where Shopee, Lazada, TikTok, they charge high fees. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you're not sure if you're up to date, but I think it's around 15, 18% Shopee, Lazada now.
Yeah.
So, which is really high. So if your margin on your product is, 70, 80%, they're taking, a third of what your potential profit would be. So do you think a lot of these brands, they're disincentivized to use third parties and they'd rather drive traffic themselves? Or what's your view on kind of how brands look at these third parties?
I have two distinctive views on this. I think what the e-commerce platforms enable, which is hard for any brand to do it themselves, is to A/B test their product for different demographic types. Now, if I'm a brand owner, let's say I launch a product A, and my right ICP or my ideal customer profile for this product is women in their 40s in Nissan. Now, for me to go and build a retail outlet or target those customers,
even online,
and build that traffic is going to take me years. So the e-commerce platforms enable faster testing of your product categories to the right demographic, which you already pulled.
Yeah, so if your business is good or bad quicker rather than later.
Correct.
Save yourself a lot of time and money.
Right,
probably.
you save time and money, and you save a bunch of hours of A/B testing in offline, online, performance ads, marketing ads, etc. Right. So I think that's what e-commerce platforms really shine at when it comes to brands and new products.
Yeah.
Now, I think where most brands are struggling, and this is not just big brands, smaller brands, SMEs, etc., is my pricing strategy designed for online or is my pricing strategy designed for offline? I think where most people start is they pick up a pricing strategy which is a bit neutral on both fronts and then see where the margins will come from, see where the volumes will come from. But my general advice is if you're a new brand on a certain product category, you got to decide up front, what are you committing towards? Are you committing to be an online first brand and your pricing strategy is going to bake in the platform fees, the fulfillment fees, the refunds, the rejects, etc.? Or am I going to focus on offline first and eventually may dive into online later?
Because what you're saying is that, for example, I'll go and open 10 retail sneaker shops. I have to pay for the fit out. There's that cost, right?
Correct.
So that builds into your margin. And you're saying the opposite is you just pay a higher fee and sell it online, but that's essentially those costs going to balance themselves out eventually.
Correct. And yeah, pricing strategy, I think, is what today most first-time SME or D2C brand founders miss out on.
Yeah.
They don't focus on where am I headed first? What am I going to try for the next 6 months? And sometimes they're like kind of a little bit spray and pray, right?
Yeah.
I'll try offline a little bit. I'll do a pop-up here at a mall, and I'll try online, and I'll try every different platform. I think it's important to invest that time up front. Which platform, where my demographic lives, and there's plenty of data out there.
Yeah.
And then figuring out your pricing
Because
strategy.
I'm sure we could go walk into a Nike shop now and just using Nike for example, say a shoe's 2,000 baht. I'm sure we could, if we really wanted to find a cheaper pair, we could find them online for 1,700 baht. But there's still that market and that demographic of people that want to go on and try on the shoe and buy them at that moment, right? Whether they're buying it online, maybe they like it, don't like it. So you're saying there's still different brands, they focus on that demographic. And JD Sports, for example, they have a wide range of selection where people can come in, get the full experience versus just getting a slightly cheaper product online.
Yep. And it's also the density of offline availability, right? I mean, if you're in Sukhumvit, you've got a mall in every kilometer. But if you're living in...
And convenience,
Yeah, if you're living outside of Bangkok, sometimes you just don't have access to those brands.
Yeah.
And that's what sort of online enables, right?
Yeah. And also, like you said, and it's one thing, Bangkok's a big city. Say they're not available in Central World, they're only available at Icon CM.
Correct.
Do you really want to go to Icon CM to go pick up some little item? No.
Yep.
You'd rather just order it online. Okay, so that was your e-commerce journey. So post Shopee is when you...
So when I started, post Shopee was A2D.
And how did A2D come to life?
To be very honest, it came out of my own personal pain point. So I've been an angel investor for roughly 14 years now. Started off friends and family in the US, right? I mean, it's part of the Valley culture, right? A buddy's doing something, it's like, hey, let's syndicate a small round of friends and family. You put in some money. So that's where the habit sort of formed. I wasn't rich. I mean, I remember writing my first check when I probably had 1,500 bucks in the bank. And one of my buddies was starting a company, and he said, okay, let's all put in 1,000 each, right?
Just kind of see, be part of the journey.
Learn. It was more so support. Like, I always believed in this smart colleague, right? Than an unknown person. And from that, it became sort of a habit. When I saw returns from it, I was like, oh, this thing makes money. This is not just supporting a buddy, but it makes money, right? And then we saw this plethora of platforms come up in the US, like AngelList, Start Engine, Republic, right? That became actual businesses of enabling many investors to participate with small checks into these deals, right? I mean, Naval, of course, the prolific founder of AngelList and the guru of how this democratized access to venture capital happened. So I was a big fan of AngelList as a customer. I was using them to write checks, looking at deals, following syndicate leads, et cetera, right? And then over the last maybe 15 years or so, India went through its own journey of becoming the second largest startup ecosystem of the world. A bunch of platforms sprung up. And what these platforms enabled for me was sitting here or anywhere, I could get access to good deals, or at least know what the founders are building for their market.
In India?
In India.
Okay.
So I started investing to a bunch of these platforms, right? In fact, I even invested in one of the platforms that was enabling all this. And I saw that just go through a massive rocket ship, right?
Well, India also has this huge pool of tech talent. So, and all these guys, they probably need to be paired up with more of a business guy, but they're probably really good at developing tech and solving problems. And so, like you said, you're investing in like people that they know what they're doing.
Yep. So that's where it all started. And when I moved to Southeast Asia and I was living here, I was like, well, I want to invest in companies. I want to invest in startups. Where do I get my deal flow from?
Yeah.
None. I mean, there's no unified platform that brings me deals from across Southeast Asia. I started making friends with a bunch of analysts and associates at some of the funds, like Tuk 500, guys out of Singapore. But even then, they're busy doing their job. I mean,
their primary focus is on leading rounds or doing seed, like
and
instead
deploying
of
their
doing
checks.
fractional. Correct. And are those those guys they're working for the company that's investing rather
Correct.
than kind of doing deals for themselves, right?
I mean, there were some offline syndicates, right, run on WhatsApp groups and line messages, but mainly friends, right? I mean, a bunch of guys who invest together. The founder likes them or they know them. And that's how it was very loosely sort of put together from a angel syndication standpoint. And then there are other groups right. There's the Inside Angels group. There's XA Network out of Singapore. So what I notice is no one's trying to productize and broaden this angel investor access, both on the investor side as well as the founders. So it was my pain point, and I said, okay, well, let's go try to build back then the angel list for Southeast Asia. That was the intent.
So you build up basically a list of people that are interested in angel investing, and then you would then go and find the deal flow to propose to that list.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the core angel list model, naively looking back, I mean, it wouldn't work. For an angel list, which is an infrastructure play, you need a lot of syndicates like me, right? You need a lot of solo GPs using the back end to do their fund admin, to syndicate structures, et cetera, right? So as we were traveling around the region, we realized the infrastructure play is not going to work because I don't have customers for it. So why don't we go and try and become the largest angel VC syndicate ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's where it started, right? So we started meeting investors around the region.
Oh, so instead of becoming the angel list, you are the SVP. You're fronting.
We are the SPVs.
Yeah.
So today we have investors from around the world.
Yeah. So would you say A2D, each syndicate, it's like every deal is separate. It's a separate deal, so a separate syndicate for each deal.
Correct.
So it's all unique.
It's all a deal by deal
Yeah.
SPV. And my job as a GP is to find the best deals. We typically build a lot of high conviction by putting some of our own capital as well. So I'm just not brokering a deal. And then we publish that to our list of investors. There are angels, high net worth individuals, exited founders, family offices, sometimes even VC funds. And we say, hey, look, we're backing this deal. And if you're interested, you can co-invest alongside, starting as low as $3,000.
Yeah. Oh, so that is the entry fee into is $3,000.
Correct.
Okay.
But you have to be an accredited investor because it's not open to retail.
Yeah.
But all of it is done through deal by deal SPVs that we set up for each deal.
And then for you're saying before you're struggling to find deal flow. How did you solve that pain point with A2D to actually find the deal flow for the syndicate?
It's not easy. You got to travel a fair bunch. You got to build relationships. And relationships don't just end at saying, hey, I go to a networking event, I meet 5 founders and it's done. I think it was built over time. As we backed more founders, we got more founder referrals.
Yeah.
As we traveled around, we got more.
And you focus on Southeast Asia, not Thailand. You're based in Thailand, but you're Southeast Asian focused.
We're based in Thailand. I mean, A2D itself is a Singaporean company, but me and my managing partner, my co-founder, we're based here. So our office is here. We operate out of Bangkok. And Bangkok was unique because Thailand especially felt extremely underserved.
Yeah.
I mean, here, if you're a seed stage or pre-seed founders, which I know you know a bunch, where do they go for capital? And how do they even raise their pre-seed round of 100K or 200K? So Thailand, we felt we have an unfair advantage because we're here.
Yeah, there's not a lot of early stage VC funds
Correct.
here.
Correct.
And there's not a lot of Singapore probably has one of or maybe Jakarta had the most active, and I know Hong Kong has. Even Hong Kong, for as big a city it is, and it started being a financial hub. I probably couldn't think of less than 10 active VCs, and they're primarily only focused on China.
Correct. It depends on how you define active. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of funds, but are they actively deploying? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the question these days, right? I mean, do you still have dry powder to deploy? And how many deals are you going to do? And with the funding winter, quote unquote, I think every investor is extremely picky on what they want to deploy into.
Going back to that, so say if you're a startup now in Thailand, if you're a founder, if you needed to raise 150, 200K for your first investment, how would you advise someone to do that?
So over the last 2 years, we realized there's 2 buckets of founders. Founder archetype A really struggled to even know what they're raising for. No one had coached them on their 0 to 1, right? And how do I raise? What needs to be on my pitch deck? What is my solution landscape look like, right?
So just have an idea.
Just have an idea.
Yeah.
Maybe your MVP,
Yeah.
right? And we were saying no to a bunch of these founders. I think maybe more than 2,000 of these, right? They haven't learned the basic, or they don't have access to the right toolkit to say, am I VC fundable? is venture capital right for me? Do I need to get venture capital in to grow my business, right? And I think that was because Thailand has, for the longest time, lacked an independent sector agnostic accelerator, like a Y Combinator or an
Where they
Angela.
educate founders on put them through
Correct.
programs about how they should, how you should put your cap table, your
Correct.
data rooms, all these types of things.
Correct. So that was archetype 1 of founders we met in Thailand. And archetype 2 were founders who know what they were doing, had access to the right tools, but just needed that early conviction to start their business, to go from, let's say, 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, whatever you call it, right? So those founders we backed, and now we have 8 in our portfolio. And sometimes there were seasoned founders with second ventures or third ventures, right? So those ones we backed, but there were few. There are not that many. And that's why deal flow in Thailand, in general perception, is bad.
Yeah. How were the startups funding them? How were they getting funding before? Was it really just friends and family, or was it in the past? What was the landscape like?
So the lesson we learned, and that's why alongside A2D last year, we launched Venture Spark, which is our accelerator program, very similar to Y Combinator. You apply, do interviews, you come in, we essentially hold hands for 4 months, train you on a bunch of master classes, and then you go pitch, right? I think what I discovered through that process is a lot of these founders relied on government grants. And Thailand has no shortage of these grants, by the way. There's 4 funds that are actively giving grants.
Do you say DEPA?
There's a DEPA, there's a TED fund, and you can actually do multiple rounds of TED funds. There's NIA, and then there's FDI.
Are these only for Thai national founders or also for international founders based in Thailand?
Historically, they were all focused on Thai founders or Thai majority.
Yeah. Well, because it's still the company ownership structure,
Correct.
Here, right?
And it has to be domiciled in Thailand, right? But last year, with a lot of back and forth and working actively with these agencies, I think for us, A2D is probably one of the few that has partnered with each one of them. And today, most of these agencies give you a matching fund or a grant.
Yeah.
So if A2D is investing, let's say 100,000, they will invest 100,000, and it's okay for the company to be registered in Singapore as long as there's Thai co-founders.
So they'll match it. So that's
They'll match it.
So it's a good incentive for you guys.
It's a good incentive.
So you know that if you're able to put a syndicate together for this project, and as long as they match the criteria,
Correct.
then essentially it's double the
Double
funding.
the funding,
Yeah.
correct? And sometimes it's non-dilutive. So it goes in favor of the founder, right? And for Venture Spark, we had opened up doors to even expat founders, as long as your company is registered and operating in Thailand, or you have one Thai co-founder on your team, we were okay to accept them and even back them. And we've backed a couple of these. So
How did these Thai startups get around? Say, for example, if you're a holding companies in Singapore, but you're operating in Thailand, but it's a foreign founder. Is that difficult for you to invest in a company like that, where there's multiple layers and there's the ownership structure, or is Thailand becoming a bit more lenient or easier to get like BOIs and like kind of have foreign ownership? Because that's also a obstacle you must be dealing with, right?
I mean, honestly, I prefer that, right? I prefer a Singapore holdco.
Yeah.
Because then you could invest through safe notes. There's a lot of optionality for you as an investor and the right governance, right? But sometimes the founders are not aware. They don't know how to structure the company right. How do you do a BOI and create a Thai entity? So typically, if we run into a situation where the founder of the startup does not have a Singapore holdco and they have an operating Thailand co, we're okay to invest as long as there's a timeline on when they will go create a Singapore holdco at certain threshold, maybe at seed or Series A. And it's a prerequisite. But it's a prerequisite not just to build your business, but it's a prerequisite to get funding from other VCs who are not in Thailand, right? So the preference is always one, but I think BOI is getting easier, but it's not for everyone because it involves a process. There's a process and a cost involved.
So at a startup, they don't want to allocate 10,
Correct.
15,000 to getting a BOI when they'd rather be spending that on their business, right?
Correct.
The actual operating of the business.
So it's not a bottleneck. I think we've done investments both ways. Yes, does it add a layer of complexity? Sure. But then again, we're in the business of venture capital. If we're not going to take the risk, who will?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned safe notes. So many years ago, I've always liked safe notes. Specifically, I kind of got them from the US and Y Combinator, I think.
YC.
YC when I first saw them. And I used to use them, and a lot of times when I was using them in Hong Kong and Singapore, people, well, what's this safe note thing? And it's great for founders because one, it's a simple form, it locks people in, and then you don't have to go in valuation today, you can go on a discount later. But I'm interested to know from a VC point of view, why do you like safe notes? And you must be one of the other people offering safe notes in the region.
Yeah, I think safe notes add a bunch of convenience in the early days. One is the legal costs to set up your company, do SHAs, et cetera. It simplifies a lot of that. I think as a VC, it gives me a lot of downside risk protection because the valuation isn't set today. The price isn't set today. So typically safe notes come with a discount mechanism, right?
It probably takes away a lot of friction, right?
It takes away so much.
You could be, no, we think we were 4 million, 3 million. It's like, forget about it. We'll figure that out later. Let's focus on, we both agree we like the business. And like, if you say you're going to do it, great. We will do it, but we'll agree to the valuation at a later date.
And you can never bank on the forecast anyway.
Yeah.
And every founder comes off the chute saying, I'm going to make $10 million next year.
Like
the graph is always this way, right? But the graph is never this way. It's like up, you down, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So safe notes, again, saves time. It gives us downside risk protection because you don't have to decide the valuation today. And because of the discount mechanisms, we can always go back and say, well, you thought you're going to be worth 5, but actually based on where the business is, we think you're valued at 3, and the discount mechanism gives us that optionality.
Yeah. Okay, just before I forget, going back to Venture Spark. What's if someone wants to apply for it, and how would they apply, and who was eligible for that program?
Great. So we did cohort 1 last year. We're gearing up for cohort 2 this year.
And when would that?
Most likely early or late, either early quarter 2 or late quarter 1, which is March, April timeframe. And the eligibility criteria is quite simple. You need to have a MVP that's working.
In the market already?
Doesn't have to be in market. Could be pre-revenue, but a working prototype that works, right? And great if you also have a POC or a LOI or some sort of a customer feedback, early customer signs of saying, interest, hey, if you build it, I'll buy it, right? Yeah. So sort of that. Ideally, 2 founders, but if it's a solo founder, it's okay if they have a tech team or a tech partner.
Why 2 founders?
Again, it's just risk mitigation, right? If one founder is busy doing the accelerator for 4 months, who's going to go run the business? If you get a solo founder, and now they're locked up 4 months in an accelerator, it does take a hit on the business. Or at least that's what we've seen, right?
Yeah.
So hence, if you're a solo founder, but you have a tech team who can continue working on the product while you're going and learning and sort of spending these 4 months, it just adds better balance, and you're not stopping the business from going ahead, right? So that's why that's one requirement. The third and the most important one is you got to be building in, for, or from Thailand.
Okay. So
you could be based here serving customers globally. Yeah. That's totally okay. You could have a BOI company. Yeah. It's probably the best outcome. Right?
Yeah. If they charge overseas prices, correct?
You could be building for Thai customers, and you could be a foreign founder. That's also okay. Or you are building in Thailand and you're a Thai founder, also eligible.
Yeah.
So as long as there's a Thailand angle to it, and because our partners in this program is also the government agencies.
Okay.
So that's one of the requirements, that it does need to create an impact for Thailand.
Okay. And then you did mention that you prefer 2 founders. What is the ideal mix of founder expertise for you?
One tech, one business.
One tech, one business. Okay, so that's
one who gets the problem, one who solves for the problem.
Yeah, so when you say tech, basically someone that can write the code or a product manager.
In a digital world, yes, someone who could write a code or a product manager. In a hardware world, could be someone who's a designer, a patent owner, someone who's created that hardware, right?
Yeah. And I'm just interested to also understand, what are some red flags? Like say if you had to get 3 red flags from founders that you've kind of experienced in the past. When, is it, because you obviously said one business, is there a red flag for a founder that you would have, or 3 red flags that you kind of steer away from?
I mean, typically I don't like to call them red flags. I like to call them orange flags for a reason that sometimes they just don't know.
Yeah.
They haven't been coached that way, or the life experiences they've had never taught them to be that kind of a founder, right? So they come from a very myopic, or their own view of the world, their own view of the problem, and their own view of the solution set. So for my orange flags, I mean, typically, I think the first and the foremost one is for founders who are not coachable.
Okay.
I mean,
they don't listen.
Very rigid mindset. They don't want to ask for help. They have very narrow view of what their solution is. And once you do provide them feedback, instantly you can tell like they're not open to feedback or they just don't see the world the way you see it, right? Which from an investor lens is totally different because we meet a bunch of founders all the time. I think last year we spent meeting 1,000 plus founders, right? So we've seen the solution being solved somewhere, someplace in a fashion, right?
Yeah.
And typically the feedback comes from that benchmarking sort of horizontal view of what that solution space could look like. So the coachability is definitely one. I think the second one is when either they size the market too high or too low. I mean, suddenly I see founders that will say, yeah, my product, the TAM is $80 billion. It can go to any customer anywhere in the world. And I'm like, okay, well, the reality is too different, right? So sizing the market right. That's quite important. And the third one doesn't happen as much, but usually we do see that, is when they fake their backgrounds.
Oh. So they'll say like they come, I was a partner in Shopee, founder of Shopee.
Something
like
or
that.
I went to Cornell for undergrad, but all they did was a summer program.
Yeah.
Right.
What, because that happens a lot these days where, and maybe this is an orange flag as well, where say a founder is doing multiple different things, or one of the founders is doing multiple different things. Do you think that is a negative sometimes on a business, or are you okay if they're able to manage it? Because I guess why I'm asking this, because, especially in the world we live in now, everything's so digital. So people and then a lot of the business probably entrepreneur of the two co-founders might be interested in, doing this and that and that. What's your views on someone that wears multiple hats in a business you invest in, or if that is a no?
So my short answer is I'm not a fan of hobby founders, right? Turning a hobby into a startup, that's a no-go. I mean, building a company today, especially in this environment, is super hard.
So you need to be super focused.
If you're not focused, if you're not 200% every day showing up, doing the same work all over again, for me, that's not a bankable founder, especially not with such a risk-free capital as we provide, right? So the probability and the risk is just so high for that founder failing at what their venture is going to look like if they're part-time or it's a hobby turned into a business. So typically for me, that's usually a no-go, unless they can articulate that, look, I have a family business and I have 5 people managing it and I just give it a bit of an oversight, but I'm all into this venture.
So it's a unique, circumstantial, depending on what the
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I guess I know right now you're really focused on Thailand with the new next cohort, but do you have plans to expand to Indonesia, Singapore, other parts of Southeast Asia? What are kind of the next 2 to 3 years look like for you guys?
Again, I think it really is back to me as a founder now for this outfit, right? We would go if the problem statement exists. In Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, there's already very well-established accelerators. There's Antler specific to each market. There's no Antler in Thailand. So we saw a problem in Thailand, hence we built a solution for it. Immediately, I would say no plans because I do see good, solid accelerators in each one of these markets. As A2D, we're everywhere. But for an accelerator, I think the focus is Thailand and continue to discover, groom sort of that emerging talent and see what sort of talent pools exist. We want to do wider our outreach within Thailand, right? So spend more time up north in Chiang Mai, see what that ecosystem is looking like.
So there's a founder community up there.
There's a great founder community. I think for some of the biotech, food innovation, even I would say health tech, there's some great innovation coming out of Chiang Mai. What's happening down south in Phuket, right? So I think we do want to expand our outreach within Thailand and reach more founders and remove that sort of friction or barrier of language. I think most founders are afraid to go into Accelerator because they think it's going to be all in English.
I was going to ask that, is it in English or Thai?
So it is English-led because their mentors and master classes are all in English. But we're trying to make accommodations where we encourage them to come in and still find a way to navigate the language barrier. Because I mean, as a founder, that's a fundamental tool you need to get out of Thailand.
Yeah.
To do business development, to hire talent, to scale.
If you're going to bring your business outside of Thailand, you need to learn.
You need to be in English, right?
Yeah.
So
still is the global language.
So as long as we can sense that there is one co-founder or a founding team member who's okay in English, I think we're very okay to bring them in and sort of groom them in that direction, right?
Yeah. And then speaking of on expanding within Thailand, where do you see kind of the new startups and the new industries that we should be looking out for in that kind of the next kind of year or so, or even this year?
I think it goes back to what Thailand is good at. Not now, but what Thailand has been good at for over 200 years. Thailand has been great at food innovation, agri-tech. I mean, it's just ideas they have that no other country has, right? At least from a regional.
Could you give some examples of some successful?
So there's one company, two actually. One company we invested in, it's called Unifaz. It's a biotech company.
Yeah.
They're using phages to replace the use of antibiotics in poultry or chicken farms, right? Now, most of the farms and most of the poultry we consume has a bunch of antibiotics that these chickens are treated throughout their life cycle, right? So how do you eliminate that and bring more organic elements into their feed where you drop down the use of antibiotics? So this technology was built by a Thai founder.
Yeah, so and it's I guess improving the quality of chicken
Massively.
in Thailand.
Correct.
So then it's because I know a lot of people will import chickens from the US or especially eggs in New Zealand.
Correct.
So instead of kind of putting Thailand on a high pedestal for, chicken product as well.
Great quality, right? So, I mean, initially it was all designed towards exports, but as you improve the farm economics, it's going to impact domestic consumption as well. So that's one example. The other one is a company that was part of our cohort last year. They're using Wolfia, which is I think it's a hidden gem from a Thailand dietary ingredient perspective. So it's a superfood.
Yeah.
It replaces the use of the amount of fiber you need to consume. So the founder is a Dr. Achan, right? And he's built this company where he's cultivating Wolfia for food consumption. It could go as supplements, it could go in drinks. Again, this Wolfia has existed in Thailand for many hundreds of years, but just never exported, never packaged, never marketed as a superfood.
Would you say it's kind of like the Red Bull story where like that
Similar.
drink was...
Correct.
And it was just repackaged to be appealing to the foreign market, right?
Correct. So
that was a drink that's been around... I think it was been around for probably 100 years, 50 years.
I mean, prior to becoming a global phenomena, Red Bull was already in the market for 300 years.
Yeah.
Sorry, for 100 years, roughly 100 years, in different form factor, right? I mean, not Red Bull, but in different form factor, or the recipe existed.
Or the concept, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to wrap up now, but thank you so much for all the insights.
No worries.
And if someone wants to find you, where's the best way that they can either apply to A2D?
Yes.
Or where's the
so
best
we
way
have
to get you guys?
A2D as a website, A2DVentures.com, or you can look us up on Instagram. For VentureSpark, the same, VentureSpark.com, or look us up on Instagram. For me personally, I'm super active on LinkedIn, so anyone can look me up.
And now on Instagram?
And now on Instagram, I just have finally a new public profile that I'm trying to put myself out there and show founders what the face or the thought process behind A2D is.
Yeah.
And happy to connect with any founder.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time today.
Well,
we appreciate
thanks,
learning
Charlie.
more about
Appreciate
you.
this.